Nana stood at the bustling Douala International Airport, her heart pounding as she clutched a worn leather suitcase. The humid air clung to her skin, but it wasn't the heat making her sweat, it was fear. Fear of leaving everything behind. Fear of failing. Fear of what lay ahead in America, where dreams were said to come true if you worked hard enough. Her mother hugged her tightly, tears streaming down her face. "You're doing this for us, Nana," she whispered hoarsely. "For all of us." Her father nodded solemnly, his weathered hands gripping hers. "Make us proud." She swallowed the lump in her throat and forced a smile. "I will." But deep inside, doubt gnawed at her. What if she couldn't deliver? Cameroon had been suffocating. Poverty, limited opportunities, and expectations that weighed heavier than the bags on her shoulders. She'd saved every penny from odd jobs to secure a visitor's visa, knowing full well it wouldn't allow her to stay forever. But staying wasn't the plan, success was. When Nana landed in New York City 2 days later, the reality hit her like a freight train. The towering skyscrapers and endless streams of people overwhelmed her senses. This wasn't the glamorous America she'd imagined. It was loud, cold, and indifferent. Her cousin, who'd promised to help her settle, barely glanced up from his phone when he picked her up. "You'll figure it out," he muttered before dropping her off at a cramped apartment shared with 3 other immigrants. For weeks, Nana wandered the city, handing out resumes at restaurants, shops, and offices. Most employers took one look at her shaky English and shook their heads. Desperation set in when her visa expiration date loomed closer. One night, sitting alone on a park bench, she stared at her phone screen. A message from her mother asking how things were going. "I'm fine," Nana typed back, forcing cheerfulness into her words. "Everything is great." Her stomach growled, reminding her she hadn't eaten since breakfast. She scrolled through job listings again, stopping at an ad for a hostess position at a nightclub. The pay was decent, no experience required. Her finger hovered over the call button. Strip clubs weren't part of her dream, but survival demanded sacrifices. As she pressed dial, Nana whispered to herself, "This isn't forever. Just until I can send money home." Little did she know, those words would haunt her for years to come. The neon lights of Club Velvet flickered like fireflies against the dark New York skyline. Nana adjusted her skirt nervously, tugging at its hem as if trying to stretch it longer. Her reflection in the mirror stared back, wide eyes framed by thick lashes, lips painted a shade too red. She barely recognized herself. First night. A tall woman with bleached blonde hair leaned against the doorway, smirking. "Don't worry, sweetheart. Just smile, shake what your mama gave you, and don't take anything personally." Nana nodded stiffly, though every fiber of her being screamed to run. But running wasn't an option anymore. Rent was due, groceries weren't free, and her parents' messages grew more urgent each day. "When are you sending money?" they'd ask. Guilt twisted her insides. How could she explain that survival here meant swallowing her pride? Her first customer approached before she could overthink it, a middle-aged man with slicked back hair and a gold watch that gleamed under the strobe lights. He slid a $50 bill onto the table beside her. "You're new," he said, his voice oily. "What's your name?" "Nina," she lied quickly, avoiding eye contact. She hated lying, but Nina felt safer somehow, less real, less tied to the girl who once dreamed of becoming a nurse. By the end of the night, her feet ached, her cheeks hurt from forced smiles, and her soul felt heavier than ever. Still, she counted out the crumpled bills in her purse. $300. Enough to send half home and keep some for herself. As she walked back to her cousin's apartment, dodging puddles in her cheap heels, she reminded herself why she was doing this. It's temporary. But weeks turned into months, and the nights blurred together. Each envelope sent home brought promises from her parents. "We're building the foundation now," they wrote, attaching blurry photos of concrete walls rising in their village. Nana clung to those images like lifelines, even as shame gnawed at her during sleepless nights. One evening, after another grueling shift, Nana collapsed onto a park bench near Times Square. A homeless man rummaged through a trash can nearby, humming softly. Watching him, something inside her broke. Was this all life had to offer? Trading dignity for dollars, chasing a dream that might never come true. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. "How much longer until you finish the house? People are asking about it." Nana stared at the screen, anger bubbling beneath her exhaustion. Didn't they understand how hard she was working? Or did they simply not care? She typed back curtly, "I'm doing my best." As she hit send, a stranger sat beside her on the bench. He wore a tailored suit and carried an air of authority. "Rough night?" he asked casually. Nana hesitated, then nodded. Something about his tone made her want to talk, to unload the weight crushing her chest. Little did she know, this encounter would change everything. The man on the bench exuded an unsettling confidence. His tailored suit seemed out of place amidst the chaos of Times Square, yet he blended in effortlessly, like someone who belonged wherever he chose to be. He extended his hand toward Nana. "Victor," he said smoothly, his voice carrying a faint accent she couldn't quite place. "Nina," she replied automatically, shaking his hand briefly before pulling hers back. She didn't trust easily these days. Not strangers, not promises, not even herself. Victor chuckled softly, as if sensing her guardedness. "You look tired. Life treating you rough." Nana hesitated, then shrugged. "It is what it is." He leaned closer, lowering his voice conspiratorially. "What if I told you there's a way out? A shortcut to everything you're working so hard for?" Her instincts screamed at her to walk away, but curiosity rooted her to the spot. "What kind of shortcut?" she asked cautiously. Victor smiled, a practiced grin that didn't reach his eyes. "I own businesses. Legitimate ones. Restaurants, clubs, even real estate ventures. But they require people who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. People like you." Nana stiffened. "I'm not interested in anything illegal." "Oh no, nothing illegal," Victor assured her, though his tone suggested otherwise. "Just opportunities most wouldn't dare take. And the pay. Enough to send your family a small fortune every month." Images flashed through her mind. The unfinished house in Cameroon, her parents' eager texts, the shame of returning empty-handed. Could this be her escape from the endless grind of strip clubs and low-paying jobs? "I'll think about it," she muttered, standing abruptly. Her heart raced as she walked away, Victor's piercing gaze burning into her back. That night, sleep eluded her. Victor's words replayed in her head, mingling with guilt and desperation. The next evening, as she left Club Velvet after another exhausting shift, she noticed a sleek black car idling nearby. Before she could react, the window rolled down, revealing Victor's smug face. "You didn't think I'd let you slip away that easily, did you?" he said with a smirk. "How did you find me?" Nana demanded, her pulse quickening. Victor tapped the side of his nose knowingly. "In my line of work, information is currency. Your name, or should I say Nina, isn't exactly rare in certain circles. Plus," he gestured vaguely toward the club, "let's just say I have friends everywhere." Nana swallowed hard, realizing how vulnerable she truly was. Strippers, immigrants, anyone living on society's fringes, they were easy targets for someone like him. Still, she tried to mask her unease. "What do you want?" "To help you," Victor replied smoothly. "Meet me tomorrow night. Same park bench. Bring your decision." Against her better judgment, she went. Victor greeted her warmly, leading her to a private office above one of his clubs. On the desk lay documents detailing lucrative deals involving offshore accounts and shell companies. Nana felt queasy but intrigued. "This isn't exactly legal," she murmured. "It's business," Victor corrected. "And you'll never have to worry about money again." As weeks passed, Nana found herself entangled in Victor's world. Money laundering disguised as legitimate transactions. It was dangerous, exhilarating, and morally suffocating. Yet, the envelope she sent home grew thicker, and her parents' messages overflowed with gratitude. Then came the phone call that shattered her fragile peace. A woman claiming to be Victor's former associate warned her. "He doesn't let anyone leave alive." Suddenly, Nana realized she wasn't just risking her dignity anymore. She was risking her life. Nana stared at her phone screen, the anonymous caller's warning echoing in her mind like a death knell. "He doesn't let anyone leave alive." Her hands trembled as she set the device down on the cluttered kitchen counter of her cousin's apartment. For the first time since arriving in America, fear wasn't just gnawing at her. It was consuming her whole. She tried to rationalize it. Maybe the woman was lying. Maybe this was some kind of scare tactic from one of Victor's enemies. But deep down, Nana knew better. Victor didn't strike her as someone who took betrayal lightly. And if he'd found her so easily after their initial meeting, what else could he uncover? How long before he realized she was planning an exit? Her thoughts spiraled into panic. She couldn't stay, but leaving felt impossible. Every envelope she sent home carried not just money but hope. Hope for her parents, for the house they promised was almost finished, for the life she dreamed of returning to. Now, all those dreams felt tainted by Victor's shadowy influence. That night, unable to sleep, Nana scrolled through old messages from her mother. One photo caught her eye, a blurry image of concrete pillars rising against a cloudy sky. Her family claimed it was progress on her dream house. But something about the angle seemed off, too perfect, too staged. Doubt crept in, mingling with paranoia. What if they weren't building anything at all? What if the money she risked everything for was being wasted? Or worse, stolen? Determined to find answers, Nana called her mother the next morning. When her mom answered, cheerful as always, Nana cut straight to the point. "Send me new pictures of the house. Clear ones." There was a pause on the other end. "Why? Don't you trust us?" "It's not about trust," Nana snapped, guilt twisting her stomach. "I just want to see it." Reluctantly, her mother agreed. Hours later, blurry photos arrived. Different angles of the same structure, but nothing substantial. No interior shots, no workers visible. Just empty frames meant to placate her. Fury bubbled inside her. Was this another lie? Or had she been fooling herself all along? Meanwhile, Victor grew more insistent. He began appearing unannounced at Club Velvet, watching her perform with a predatory grin. One night, after her shift, he cornered her in the alley behind the club. "You've been distant lately," he said, his tone deceptively light. "Everything okay?" "Fine," she lied, forcing a smile. "Just tired." Victor studied her face, his eyes narrowing slightly. Then he handed her an envelope stuffed with cash. "For your troubles," he said smoothly. "Remember, Nina, loyalty pays dividends." As she walked away, clutching the envelope, Nana felt the weight of her double life pressing down on her. Loyalty. To whom? To a man who saw her as expendable. To parents who might be using her sacrifices for their own gain. And then it hit her, the horrifying truth she'd been avoiding. If Victor ever discovered how much money she'd funneled overseas, or worse, if her parents' lies came to light, she wasn't just trapped, she was running out of time. Nana stared at the cracked ceiling of her cousin's apartment, sleep evading her once again. It wasn't just the thin mattress digging into her back or the distant hum of traffic outside. It was the weight of everything she'd sacrificed. Every dollar sent home felt like another piece of herself chipped away, yet she clung to the hope that it would all be worth it someday. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from her mother. Attached was a photo of what appeared to be freshly painted walls, sunlight streaming through half-installed windows. "Look how beautiful it's coming along," the caption read. "Your dream house is almost ready." Nana smiled faintly, exhaustion giving way to pride. All those nights dancing under neon lights, enduring leering stares and unwanted touches. It was for moments like this. For the house she envisioned standing tall in her village. A symbol of her resilience. Her parents even mentioned starting construction on the rental properties she'd funded. Soon, she'd have a steady income waiting for her back home. But pride couldn't silence the gnawing fear in her gut. Victor had become increasingly possessive, showing up unannounced at Club Velvet and slipping envelopes of cash into her hands after shifts. "You're my best investment," he'd say with that smug grin of his, making her skin crawl. She hated owing him anything, but survival left little room for choice. One evening, after a particularly grueling performance, Nana retreated to the club's dimly lit dressing room. Her reflection in the mirror looked foreign, dark circles under her eyes, lips smeared with fading lipstick, and a hollow expression that no amount of makeup could mask. A younger dancer approached hesitantly, clutching a bottle of water. "You okay?" the girl asked softly. "You seem sad." Nana forced a laugh. "Just tired." The girl nodded knowingly. "I get it. This place eats you alive if you let it." Their brief exchange lingered in Nana's mind long after the girl walked away. Was this who she was now? Someone defined by late nights, cheap heels, and men who saw her as nothing more than entertainment? Well, she refused to believe it. This was temporary, a stepping stone to something greater. Still, doubt crept in during quiet moments. What if she never escaped this life? What if Victor tightened his grip until there was no way out? Determined not to dwell on such thoughts, Nana threw herself into planning her future. She began researching shipping companies online, calculating costs to send a car and furniture back to Cameroon. Each item she added to her mental list, a bed frame, kitchen appliances, curtains, felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. These weren't just belongings. They were symbols of the life she'd fought so hard to build. For now, though, escape remained a distant dream. Victor's presence loomed larger than ever, and breaking free wouldn't come without consequences. But Nana vowed to find a way, even if it meant risking everything. The club was unusually crowded that night, a sea of faces blurred by smoke and strobe lights. Nana moved mechanically across the stage, her body swaying to the rhythm of music she barely heard anymore. Her mind raced with thoughts of escape. How much longer could she endure this life? How many more nights would she trade pieces of her soul for cash-stuffed envelopes? Victor sat in his usual booth near the back, watching her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. He wasn't just a shadowy figure lurking in her periphery anymore. He was a predator circling its prey. Lately, his gifts had come with strings attached, requests for favors, cryptic mentions of business deals she didn't want to understand. She knew better than to ask questions, but the unease gnawed at her relentlessly. After her set, Nana slipped into the dressing room, avoiding eye contact with anyone who might try to strike up conversation. She needed space to think, to breathe. But before she could even sit down, one of the bouncers appeared at the doorway. "Victor wants to see you," he said gruffly. Her stomach dropped. Summoned like this, it could only mean trouble. Still, she followed him without protest, masking her fear behind a practiced mask of indifference. Victor's office was dimly lit, the air thick with cigar smoke. He gestured for her to sit across from him, his expression unreadable. For a moment neither spoke. Then he leaned forward, placing a folder on the desk between them. "I've been generous with you, Nina," he began, his tone dangerously calm. "But generosity has limits." Nana's heart pounded as she glanced at the folder. Inside were documents, bank statements, wire transfers, names. "Name. What is this?" she asked, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to stay composed. "Proof of your loyalty," Victor replied smoothly. "Every dollar you've sent overseas, every transaction tied to my businesses, it's all here. If anything happens to me." He let the sentence hang ominously. He felt sick. This wasn't just leverage, it was a trap. One wrong move, and not only would she lose everything, but her family could face repercussions too. The weight of his words crushed her chest. "You don't have to worry about me," she said quickly, forcing a shaky smile. "I'm grateful for everything you've done." Victor smirked, leaning back in his chair. Good. 'Cause I need someone I can trust. Someone willing to take risks. Risks. What did that mean? Before she could ask, he handed her another envelope stuffed with cash. For your troubles, he said dismissively. Now go home and rest. Tomorrow we'll talk details. As Nana left the club, clutching the envelope like a lifeline, panic surged within her. She couldn't keep living like this, trapped between Victor's demands and her parents' expectations. Yet breaking free seemed impossible. Every path forward led to danger, betrayal, or ruin. That night, unable to sleep, she scrolled through photos of luxurious homes online, imagining what her future could look like if she ever escaped this nightmare. Her dream house in Cameroon, the one her parents swore was almost finished, was her anchor. It reminded her why she endured so much pain. Little did she know, the cracks in her foundation ran deeper than she realized. And soon they'd shatter everything she believed in. Victor's words echoed in Nana's mind as she drove home that night. Someone I can trust. Someone willing to take risks. Risks. What kind of risks? She had already risked everything just to survive. What more could he possibly want from her? The answer came sooner than she expected. 2 days later, Victor summoned her again. This time, his office was empty except for him, which somehow made the encounter even more unsettling. He slid a sleek black folder across the desk toward her, his expression unreadable. "Open it," he instructed calmly. Inside was a passport, a perfect replica of her own, down to the photo and biographical details. Beside it lay a plane ticket to Dubai. Her stomach churned as she stared at them, dread pooling in her chest. "What is this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "A job," Victor replied smoothly. "You're traveling to Dubai tomorrow morning. My associate will meet you there with further instructions." Nana's heart raced. Traveling for what? What am I supposed to do? He leaned back in his chair, studying her like a predator sizing up its prey. "Nothing illegal, Nina. Just transporting goods. Goods worth a lot of money. And before you ask why you specifically..." His lips curled into a smirk. "Because you're clean. No criminal record. No ties to anyone who could trace you back to me. You're invisible, and that makes you valuable." Her hands trembled as she clutched the edge of the desk. I won't do this." Victor's smile vanished, replaced by cold calculation. "Refusing isn't an option. Unless you'd rather I send these documents." He tapped the folder containing her financial records. "To the authorities? Or maybe to your parents in Cameroon. Imagine how disappointed they'd be to learn where their precious daughter has been working all these years." Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them away furiously. She hated him. Hated herself for letting him corner her like this. But what choice did she have? Saying no meant exposing her family and herself to ruin. Saying yes meant crossing a line she couldn't uncross. "I'll do it," she whispered finally, her voice hollow. Victor's grin returned, triumphant. "Good girl. Remember, one mistake and we both lose." As Nana left the club, clutching the fake passport and ticket, nausea overwhelmed her. What exactly was she carrying? Drugs? Cash? Something worse? The uncertainty terrified her almost as much as Victor's threats. Back in her car, paranoia consumed her. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through old messages from her parents, the blurry photos of her dream house, the updates about progress on the rental properties. Suddenly, doubts crept in. Why were the images always so vague? Why did her mother's captions sound oddly formal, almost rehearsed? A horrifying thought struck her. What if Victor wasn't acting alone? What if her parents were somehow involved? What if they weren't building anything at all, but laundering money for him? She shook her head violently, trying to silence the voice in her mind. It was ridiculous. Her parents loved her. They depended on her. They wouldn't betray her like that. Would they? For now it was just paranoia talking. But deep down, Nana couldn't shake the feeling that she was caught in a web far larger and far darker than she realized. Nana stared at the plane ticket on the passenger seat beside her, its stark print mocking her like a countdown to doom. Dubai. A city she'd only seen in glossy travel ads, where skyscrapers kissed the clouds and luxury seemed effortless. But this wasn't a vacation. It was a mission she hadn't signed up for, one that could destroy her if anything went wrong. She couldn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, visions of airport security discovering whatever goods she was carrying flashed through her mind. Would they arrest her? Deport her? Or worse, would Victor abandon her to face the consequences alone? By morning, exhaustion weighed heavily on her shoulders, but there was no time to rest. She packed lightly, a change of clothes, toiletries, and the fake passport Victor had given her. As she zipped up her small suitcase, tears welled in her eyes. This wasn't how life was supposed to be. She'd come to America for a better future, not to become a pawn in someone else's dangerous game. At the airport, nerves made her hands shake as she approached the check-in counter. The agent barely glanced at her passport before handing back her boarding pass. For a moment, relief washed over her. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. But as she walked through security, every beep of the scanner felt like a death knell. When an officer motioned for her to step aside for additional screening, panic surged through her veins. "What's in here?" the officer asked, holding up a small package wrapped in brown paper that had been tucked inside her carry-on. Nana's throat went dry. "Just gifts for my family," she stammered, forcing a smile. "Perfume and chocolates." The officer studied her face for a moment before nodding and waving her through. She exhaled sharply, legs trembling as she moved toward the gate. That close call left her rattled, but it also confirmed what she already feared. Victor hadn't sent her on some harmless errand. Whatever was in that package was worth hiding, and potentially worth dying for. When she landed in Dubai, the heat hit her like a wall. Her contact, a wiry man named Rafiq, greeted her with a curt nod and led her to a waiting car. They drove in silence to a nondescript warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Inside, crates were stacked high, their contents unknown but ominous. Rafiq handed her another envelope filled with cash. "For your troubles," he said flatly. "Victor sends his regards." Nana wanted to scream. Instead, she nodded mutely, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. Whatever debt she owed Victor now felt insurmountable. Back in New York days later, paranoia consumed her. She couldn't stop thinking about the trip, the package, the warehouse, the cold indifference of the men who orchestrated it all. Was this really her life now? Transporting mysterious goods across continents while lying to herself that it was temporary. And then there were her parents. Their messages continued to flood her phone, asking when she'd send more money, when she'd finish the house. Each message chipped away at her resolve. How could they not see what she was sacrificing for them? Or maybe they didn't care. Maybe they only saw the dollars, not the cost. One evening, after another grueling shift at the club, Nana broke down in the shower at the gym. The water ran cold as she sank to the floor, sobs racking her body. For the first time since arriving in America, she allowed herself to grieve. For the girl she used to be, for the dreams she'd lost, for the family she barely recognized anymore. But grief wasn't an option. Not here. Not now. As she dried off and dressed, determination hardened within her. She couldn't keep living like this, trapped between Victor's demands and her parents' greed. She needed a way out. And if escape meant burning bridges, so be it. Little did she know, the hardest part of her journey was still ahead. Nana sat in her car outside a 24-hour diner, clutching the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. The envelope Rafiq had given her in Dubai weighed heavily in her lap, not because of the cash inside, but because it symbolized everything she despised about herself. She was no longer just a stripper or an undocumented immigrant struggling to survive. She was now a smuggler, a criminal complicit in Victor's dangerous schemes. Her phone buzzed incessantly on the passenger seat. Another message from her mother. "When are you coming home? People are asking when they can rent your properties." Each word felt like a knife twisting deeper into her chest. Properties. What properties? All those years of sacrifice. For what? To fund her parents' lies. Her suspicions gnawed at her relentlessly, but she shoved them aside. Right now, survival came first. Escaping Victor's grip was the only thing that mattered. But how? For days, she played out scenarios in her head. Reporting him to the police seemed impossible. He'd already made it clear he had dirt on her. Running away wouldn't work either. His reach extended far beyond New York. No matter where she went, he'd find her. Unless she could gather enough evidence to bring him down. The thought terrified her. Going up against someone like Victor wasn't just risky, it was suicidal. But staying under his thumb guaranteed a lifetime of fear and shame. At least fighting back offered a sliver of hope. That night, after another draining shift at Club Velvet, Nana approached one of the bartenders, Malik, who'd always been kind to her. He was older, with sharp eyes that missed nothing, and she suspected he knew more about Victor's operations than he let on. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly, pulling him aside during a lull in customers. Malik raised an eyebrow. "Depends. What is it?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Do you know anyone who's tried to leave Victor's business?" His expression darkened. "Why do you want to know?" "I need to get out," she admitted, tears welling in her eyes. "I can't keep doing this." Malik sighed, glancing around to ensure no one was listening. "Look, Nina, or whatever your real name is, if you're serious about leaving, you better have proof. Otherwise, you're dead before you even try." "Proof of what?" she asked, though deep down she already knew the answer. "Everything," he replied grimly. "Transactions, names, dates. Something big enough to take him down." Nana nodded slowly, dread pooling in her stomach. Gathering evidence meant getting closer to Victor, and risking everything. But what choice did she have? Over the next few weeks, she played her part perfectly, smiling when required, obeying without question. Meanwhile, she started piecing together fragments of information, overhearing conversations between Victor and his associates, memorizing details from documents left carelessly on his desk, snapping photos with her phone whenever she found an opportunity. Then came the breakthrough. One evening, Victor summoned her to his office again. This time, he was distracted, barking orders into his phone while shuffling papers on his desk. As he handed her an envelope filled with cash, she noticed a document sticking out slightly, a bank statement with offshore account numbers clearly visible. Her heart raced. Without thinking, she slipped the paper into her purse when he turned away to answer another call. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Later that night, alone in her car, she examined the stolen document under the dim interior light. The account numbers matched transactions she'd seen referenced in emails Victor sent her regarding smuggling payments. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to dream of freedom, not just from Victor, but from the life she'd been forced to live. But freedom came at a cost. And soon she'd learn just how high that cost truly was. The stolen bank statement burned a hole in Nana's purse as she drove home that night, her mind racing faster than the city lights blurring past her windshield. She knew the document alone wasn't enough to bring Victor down. It was just one piece of a much larger puzzle. But it gave her something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, she could reclaim her life. Still, hope came with danger. Victor wasn't someone who overlooked details. If he noticed the missing paper, even for a moment, he'd know exactly who took it. And when he found out, there would be no mercy. For days, Nana walked on eggshells, waiting for the other shoe to drop. At Club Velvet, Victor seemed distracted, snapping at his associates and spending long hours holed up in his office. Was he looking for the missing document? Or was this all unrelated? Either way, paranoia consumed her. Every glance from him felt like an accusation. Every conversation carried hidden threats. Her anxiety reached a breaking point one evening when Victor summoned her again. As she entered his office, her heart pounded so loudly she feared he might hear it. He gestured for her to sit, his expression unreadable. "I need you to make another trip," he said calmly, sliding a plane ticket across the desk toward her. Same routine. Same package. Nana froze. Another trip. So soon. She hadn't even processed the last one. Worse, traveling again meant risking exposure, and leaving evidence behind if things went wrong. I can't, she stammered, panic rising in her chest. I have family obligations. My parents are expecting me to send more money. Victor leaned back in his chair, studying her with cold detachment. Your parents will understand. Besides, his lips curled into a sinister smile. You owe me far more than you realize. The words hit her like a punch to the gut. Owe him. How much longer would she have to pay for choices she never wanted to make? Desperation clawed at her as she left the club later that night. She couldn't keep running errands for Victor, not without losing herself completely. Yet refusing meant certain disaster. Her only option was to accelerate her plan, to gather more evidence faster before he tightened his grip any further. The next day, she confided in Malik again, showing him the stolen bank statement. His eyes widened as he scanned the numbers. This is big, he muttered. But it's not enough. You need something undeniable, something that ties him directly to illegal activities. Like what? She asked, frustration creeping into her voice. Malik hesitated, then lowered his tone. There's a guy, a former associate of Victor's. Goes by the name Carlos. He disappeared after crossing Victor, but rumor has it he kept records. If you can find him. Nana nodded slowly, dread pooling in her stomach. Finding Carlos wouldn't be easy or safe, but it was her best shot. That night, she began searching online for anything related to Carlos. Hours passed as she scrolled through forums, news articles, and social media posts. Finally, she stumbled upon a lead. A grainy photo of a man matching Carlos's description working at a mechanic shop in Queens. Her pulse quickened. Could this really be him? If so, he might hold the key to bringing Victor down. But as she closed her laptop and prepared to leave her cousin's apartment, a chilling thought struck her. What if Victor already suspected her? What if sending her on another trip was a test, a way to see if she'd slip up? Suddenly, every move felt calculated, every decision fraught with peril. The trap was closing and she was running out of time. Nana stood outside the mechanic shop in Queens, her hands shoved deep into the pockets of her hoodie. The neighborhood was gritty, graffiti-covered walls, potholed streets, and a faint smell of oil lingering in the air. She hesitated at the entrance, glancing around nervously. What if this was a mistake? What if Carlos wasn't who he claimed to be? Or worse, what if Victor already knew she was looking for him? Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door. The bell above it jingled softly, announcing her arrival. Inside, the space was cluttered with tools, car parts, and the low hum of machinery. A man in grease-stained overalls leaned over an engine, his back to her. "Can I help you?" he asked without turning around. His voice gruff but not unkind. "I'm looking for Carlos," she said cautiously, stepping further inside. "Someone told me he works here." The man straightened slowly, wiping his hands on a rag before facing her. His face was lined with age and weariness, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. For a moment neither spoke. Then he nodded slightly. "That's me. Who sent you?" "No one," Nana replied quickly, her heart pounding. I need your help." Carlos studied her for a long moment, then gestured toward a small office tucked away in the corner. "Let's talk." Inside, the room was cramped but tidy, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. He motioned for her to sit, then leaned against the edge of the desk, arms crossed. "Start talking." She hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. But desperation outweighed caution. "I work for Victor," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Or rather, I'm trapped working for him. I need proof, something that can take him down." Carlos's expression darkened. "You don't know what you're asking for," he said flatly. "Victor doesn't go down easy. People who cross him end up dead, or wishing they were. I don't have a choice, she snapped, tears welling in her eyes. He owns me. My life, my future, he controls everything. If I don't fight back, I'll never escape. For a moment, Carlos didn't respond. Then he sighed heavily, running a hand through his graying hair. All right. Listen carefully. There's a storage unit under a fake name. It's where Victor keeps records of his operations. Transactions, contacts, everything. If you can get access to it. How? She interrupted, leaning forward eagerly. Where is it? It's risky, he warned, his tone grave. If he finds out you're even thinking about this, you're finished. But if you're serious. He scribbled an address on a scrap of paper and slid it across the desk. This is the location. Good luck. As Nana left the shop, clutching the paper tightly, adrenaline coursed through her veins. This was it, the chance she'd been waiting for. But as she walked back to her car, paranoia crept in. Had Carlos set her up? Was this some kind of trap orchestrated by Victor? Back in her cousin's apartment, she stared at the address, weighing her options. Breaking into a storage unit wasn't just illegal, it was dangerous. One wrong move and she'd be caught. But staying under Victor's thumb guaranteed a lifetime of fear and shame. She made her decision. That night, armed with gloves, a flashlight, and the stolen bank statement, she drove to the address Carlos had given her. The facility was tucked away in an industrial area, its rows of units bathed in dim orange light. Her heart raced as she approached the unit listed on the paper. Using a lockpicking kit she'd bought online, a purchase that felt surreal in hindsight, she managed to open the door after several tense minutes. Inside, boxes were stacked neatly against the walls. She opened the first one, her hands trembling as she sifted through files and documents. And then she found it, a ledger detailing every transaction, every smuggling operation, every bribe paid to officials. Names, dates, amounts, it was all there. Enough to destroy Victor. But as she snapped photos of the evidence, a sinking realization hit her. Gathering this information was only half the battle. Convincing authorities to act, and protecting herself in the process, would be another challenge entirely. Little did she know, Victor already suspected something was wrong. And when he struck back, it would change everything. Nana's hands shook as she uploaded the photos of the ledger to a secure cloud account from her cousin's apartment. Each click of the mouse felt like a lifeline being thrown into an abyss. Her only hope of escaping Victor's grip. But even as she worked, paranoia gnawed at her. What if someone traced the upload back to her? What if Victor already knew what she'd done? She deleted the files from her phone immediately, wiping the memory clean. Still, unease lingered. Gathering evidence wasn't enough. She needed a plan to use it without getting herself killed. Her phone buzzed on the table. A message from Victor. Her heart skipped a beat. We need to talk. My office. Now. Panic surged through her veins. Had he found out about the storage unit? Was this his way of luring her into a trap? She stared at the screen, frozen, until another message followed. Don't make me send someone to get you. There was no choice but to go. Refusing would raise suspicions, and right now, staying invisible was her best defense. When she arrived at Club Velvet, the atmosphere felt heavier than usual. The bouncers exchanged glances as they let her through, their expressions unreadable. Victor's office door was slightly ajar, light spilling into the hallway. She knocked softly before stepping inside. He didn't look up from his desk. Close the door, he said curtly. Nana obeyed, her pulse racing. Every second stretched like hours as she waited for him to speak. Finally, he leaned back in his chair, studying her with cold detachment. I've been hearing rumors, he began, his voice dangerously calm. Rumors about loose ends. People asking questions they shouldn't. Her stomach churned. Loose ends. Did he mean Carlos? Or worse, had he discovered her visit to the storage unit? I don't know what you're talking about, she replied, forcing her voice to remain steady. Victor smirked, tapping a folder on his desk meaningfully. Let me be clear, Nina, or whatever your real name is. Loyalty is everything in my world. Betrayal, he paused, letting the word hang ominously, is fatal. Nana swallowed hard, her mind racing. Was this a warning or a test? She forced herself to meet his gaze, masking her fear behind defiance. If you think I'm working against you, then why am I still here? His smile vanished, replaced by icy calculation. For a moment neither spoke. Then he gestured toward the door. Get out. And remember, one wrong move and you'll regret it. As she left the club, relief washed over her. But it was short-lived. Victor's words echoed in her mind, a chilling reminder that she was playing a deadly game. If she wanted to survive, she needed allies, people who could help her bring him down before he destroyed her first. That night, she reached out to Malik again, sending him a coded message. I have something big. Meet me tomorrow. Malik responded almost instantly. Be careful. Trust no one. The next morning, they met at a quiet diner on the outskirts of the city. Nana slid her phone across the table, showing him the photos of the ledger. His eyes widened as he scrolled through them. This is enough to bury him, he whispered, awe mingling with fear in his voice. But how do we use it without getting burned? We take it to the police, she said firmly. Anonymous tip. They can't trace it back to us. Malik shook his head. It's not that simple. Cops around here are either bought off or too scared to act. You think Victor got this far without protection? Despair threatened to overwhelm her, but she pushed it aside. There had to be another way. Then what do we do? She demanded, her voice cracking. I can't keep living like this. Malik hesitated, then sighed heavily. There's one person who might be able to help. An old friend of mine. Journalist. Works for an independent news outlet. If anyone can expose Victor, it's her. Hope flickered within her. A journalist. Someone outside Victor's reach. It was risky, but it was also her best shot. Set it up, she said, determination hardening her tone. And pray it works. Little did she know, Victor was already one step ahead. As she left the diner, a black car idled nearby, its windows tinted. Inside, a man raised a phone to his ear. Boss, we have a problem. Nana sat at the kitchen table in her cousin's apartment, surrounded by receipts, shipping invoices, and scribbled notes. Her heart raced as she ticked off items on her checklist, everything she'd need to start her new life in Cameroon. A car was already purchased, sleek and second-hand but reliable enough to withstand the village roads. Furniture had been carefully selected, a sturdy bed frame, a dining set, curtains, and even appliances for the kitchen. Every item represented a piece of the future she'd dreamed of, a future where she could finally breathe freely. The shipment company confirmed everything would arrive in Cameroon within 3 weeks. After years of sacrifice, it felt surreal to imagine stepping off the plane and into a home she'd built from scratch. Her parents' messages fueled her excitement. The house is almost ready, they wrote, attaching photos of freshly painted walls and tiled floors. Just wait until you see it. She smiled faintly at the images, though something about them still nagged at her. The angles seemed too perfect, the captions oddly formal. But she pushed the doubts aside. This was her dream, and she refused to let paranoia ruin it. Meanwhile, Elena Vasquez worked tirelessly to verify the evidence Nana had provided. The journalist called twice a week with updates, each conversation leaving Nana torn between hope and fear. We're close, Elena assured her during their latest call. Once we publish, law enforcement will have no choice but to act. But what if they don't? Nana asked, her voice trembling. What if Victor finds out before then? He won't, Elena replied firmly. Trust me, I've covered stories like this before. We'll make sure the timing is precise. Just lay low until it happens. Laying low wasn't easy. Victor grew increasingly suspicious, summoning her to his office more often than usual. Each meeting left her nerves frayed. his piercing gaze seeming to bore into her soul. Still, she played her part perfectly, smiling when required, obeying without question. Inside, though, she was counting down the days until she could leave for good. One evening, after another grueling shift at Club Velvet, Nana returned to her cousin's apartment to find an email from Elena waiting in her inbox. The subject line read, "It's happening." Her hands trembled as she opened the message. Attached was a draft of the exposé, a damning article detailing Victor's operations, complete with screenshots of the ledger and corroborating testimonies from former associates. Publication was scheduled for the following Monday. By Tuesday, federal agents would raid his properties and arrest him. Relief washed over her. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe freedom was possible. That night, she packed the last of her belongings, careful to leave no trace behind. Her ticket to Cameroon was booked, her visa secured. In less than 2 weeks, she'd be home. As she drifted off to sleep, visions of her dream house filled her mind. The laughter of tenants renting her properties, the comfort of sleeping in her own bed, the pride of showing her parents what she'd accomplished. For now, those dreams kept her going. Little did she know, the truth awaiting her in Cameroon would shatter everything she believed in. The plane touched down in Douala just as the sun began its slow descent over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Nana clutched her carry-on tightly, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nervousness. After years of sacrifice, she was finally home. The air smelled different here, earthy, humid, alive, and it filled her lungs like a balm for wounds she'd carried too long. Her parents greeted her at the airport, their faces lighting up with joy. Her mother pulled her into a tight embrace, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Welcome home, my daughter," she whispered. "We've missed you so much." For a moment, Nana allowed herself to believe everything would be okay. She hugged them back, forcing a smile despite the exhaustion weighing on her shoulders. "Take me to the house," she said softly. "I want to see it." Her father nodded enthusiastically. "Of course. You won't believe how beautiful it is." The drive to the village felt surreal. Familiar landscapes unfolded before her, the lush greenery, the bustling markets, the children playing by the roadside. Yet, something about the journey unsettled her. Her parents chattered excitedly about the house, describing features they claimed were finished, but their words felt rehearsed, almost mechanical. When they arrived, Nana stepped out of the car, her breath catching in her throat. There it was, or rather what was supposed to be there. Instead of the 2-story dream home she'd envisioned, she found an empty lot. Weeds sprouted from cracked concrete foundations, and rusted rebar jutted out like skeletal remains. No walls, no roof, no sign of progress beyond the initial groundwork. Her knees buckled beneath her as reality crashed down. What is this?" she stammered, turning to her parents. "Where's the house? The rental properties?" Her mother's smile faltered, replaced by guilt-ridden silence. Her father shifted uncomfortably, avoiding her gaze. "Nana, we can explain." "Explain what?" she shouted, her voice breaking. "That you lied to me. That every dollar I sent, all those nights working in strip clubs, smuggling packages for Victor, you used it for yourselves." Tears streamed down her mother's face. "It wasn't like that. We tried, but things got expensive. Then your father lost his job, and we needed money to survive. So you stole from me." Nana spat, anger boiling over. "You let me suffer, thinking I was building a future, while you lived off my sacrifices." Her father stepped forward, his tone defensive. "We didn't steal. We invested in our own business, a shop in town. It's doing well now thanks to your help. And look around." He gestured vaguely toward their modest home nearby. "We built this with some of the money too. Isn't that enough?" Nana stared at him, disbelief morphing into rage. "Enough. Do you even hear yourselves? I gave you everything, every piece of myself, and you threw it away." She stormed off, leaving them standing amidst the ruins of her dreams. The weight of their betrayal crushed her chest, making it hard to breathe. For years she'd endured humiliation, fear and pain, all for nothing. Her parents hadn't been building her future. They'd been using her to secure theirs. That night, alone in her childhood bedroom, Nana curled into a ball on the mattress, sobbing uncontrollably. The shame of returning to Cameroon without anything to show for her struggles consumed her. She had risked everything, her dignity, her safety, her sanity, and now she had nothing. But the worst part wasn't the loss of her dream house or the betrayal of her parents. It was the realization that she had no one left to turn to. Not her family. Not Victor, who still loomed large in her nightmares despite his arrest. Not even herself, because the person she used to be felt irretrievably lost. As days passed, grief turned to numbness. She stopped eating, barely spoke, and refused to leave the house. Her mother tried to comfort her, but Nana couldn't bear to look at her without feeling sick. Her father avoided her altogether, guilt written across his face whenever their paths crossed. Then came the fever. A relentless heat gripped her body, leaving her weak and delirious. At first, her parents dismissed it as stress, but when she collapsed one morning, they rushed her to the hospital. The diagnosis was severe malnutrition and exhaustion. Her body shutting down after years of neglect. Lying in the sterile hospital bed, Nana stared blankly at the ceiling, too drained to cry. Part of her wondered if death wouldn't be easier than facing the wreckage of her life. But deep down, a flicker of defiance remained. She had survived Victor, endured unimaginable hardships, and crossed oceans for a better future. Surely, she could find a way to rise again, even if it meant starting from ashes. Little did she know, redemption would come from the most unexpected source. Nana lay in the hospital bed. Her body frail but her mind restless. The doctors had stabilized her condition after days of fever and malnutrition, but complications arose when her blood pressure dropped dangerously low. The medical team explained that she needed a blood transfusion immediately to stabilize her further. Her parents were called in to donate, as family members are often the quickest matches. But when the test results came back, the doctor approached them with a puzzled expression. "There seems to be an issue," he said cautiously. "Neither of you is a match for your daughter." Nana overheard the conversation from her bed, confusion clouding her already fragile state. "What do you mean they're not a match?" she asked weakly, her voice trembling. "How is that possible?" The doctor hesitated, glancing at her parents before replying gently. "Sometimes, genetic mismatches occur due to unique circumstances. It doesn't necessarily indicate anything serious, but it does suggest that further investigation might be needed." Her parents exchanged uneasy glances, their guilt palpable. Nana stared at them, dread pooling in her stomach. "What aren't you telling me?" she demanded, her voice rising despite her exhaustion. Her mother reached for her hand, tears welling in her eyes. "Nana, there's something we need to explain." "No," Nana interrupted sharply, pulling her hand away. "Not here. Not like this. Tell me now, or I swear I'll find out myself." Her father sighed heavily, resignation etched across his face. "You're not our biological child," he admitted finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "We adopted you when you were a baby. Your real mother. She couldn't care for you. She gave you up so you could have a better life." Nana's breath hitched, her mind reeling. Everything she thought she knew about herself, her family, her roots, was a lie. She wasn't their daughter. Her entire identity was built on secrets. "Who is my real mother?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her mother hesitated, then continued haltingly. Her name was Ajoa Mensah. She was a young woman from a nearby village. When she became pregnant out of wedlock, her family disowned her. Desperate and alone, she gave you up for adoption, hoping you'd have a chance at a better future. We promised her we'd raise you as our own, but we never told you because we didn't want you to feel different. Nana's chest tightened as the weight of their words sank in. She wasn't just betrayed financially. She was betrayed emotionally. Her entire life had been built on lies, manipulated by the people who claimed to love her most. And then another thought struck her, one that made her blood run cold. If she wasn't their biological child, why had they exploited her sacrifices so ruthlessly? Why had they stolen her money, lied about building her dream house, and partnered with Victor to launder funds? Was I ever really part of this family? She asked bitterly, tears streaming down her face. Or was I just a means to an end? Her parents didn't answer. Their silence spoke volumes. As Nana processed the truth, anger began to replace despair. She realized that her parents' betrayal ran deeper than financial greed. It was rooted in years of deceit and manipulation. They had used her belief in their love to justify their actions, exploiting her sacrifices for their gain. But amidst the pain, a spark of determination ignited within her. She would expose them, all of it. The corruption, the lies, the exploitation. Because sometimes, the only way to reclaim your identity is to burn everything down first. Nana didn't speak to her parents after the hospital revelation. Instead, she retreated into silence, a storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. Her mind raced with questions, anger, and plans for retribution. She couldn't unsee the truth now. They had lied about everything: her identity, her dreams, her sacrifices. And worst of all, they had used her as a pawn in their greed-fueled schemes. When she was discharged from the hospital, she refused to return to their home. Instead, she rented a small room in a nearby town using money Elena had discreetly sent her, a gesture of gratitude for helping expose Victor. It wasn't much, but it gave her space to think, to breathe, and most importantly, to plot her next move. Her first step was gathering evidence. She reached out to Elena again, this time requesting access to any information tied to her parents' involvement with Victor's operation. Elena responded quickly, sending over documents that painted an even darker picture than Nana had imagined. Bank statements, emails, and transaction records revealed how deeply entrenched her parents were in Victor's web. They weren't just laundering money. They were actively recruiting others in the village to join his network, promising them wealth and protection in exchange for loyalty. The betrayal cut deeper than ever. These weren't just selfish acts. They were predatory. Her parents had exploited not only her but also their own community. Armed with the evidence, Nana decided it was time to confront them, not privately but publicly. She arranged a meeting at the village center, inviting elders, neighbors, and anyone else willing to listen. Word spread quickly, fueled by whispers of scandal and intrigue. By the time she arrived, a crowd had gathered under the shade of the ancient baobab tree, murmuring among themselves. Her parents stood near the front, visibly uneasy. When Nana stepped forward, their eyes widened in panic. "What are you doing?" her father hissed, trying to pull her aside. "You're embarrassing us." "No," she said firmly, shrugging off his hand. "You embarrassed me. You betrayed me. And now everyone deserves to know the truth." She turned to face the crowd, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "For years, I believed my parents loved me. I worked tirelessly abroad, enduring unimaginable hardships, because I thought I was building a future here. A house, rental properties, stability. But none of it was real." She held up the bank statements, letting the crowd see the damning numbers. "Every dollar I sent home went straight into offshore accounts linked to criminal activities. My parents didn't build anything for me. They built a life of luxury for themselves while destroying our community." Gasps rippled through the crowd as people exchanged shocked glances. Some muttered angrily, while others stared at her parents in disbelief. "That's not true," her mother cried, stepping forward. "We did it for her. To protect her. To protect me," Nana snapped, rounding on them. "Or to protect yourselves. You stole my life, my dignity, my identity, all while pretending to care about me. And now I find out I'm not even your child. How could you live with yourselves?" Her words hung heavy in the air, silencing the murmurs. For a moment no one moved. Then one of the elders spoke up, his voice grave. "This is serious. If what she says is true, then justice must be served. Her parents paled, realizing the gravity of the situation. Desperation crept into their voices as they pleaded with the crowd, denying the accusations even as the evidence mounted against them. But it was too late. Their lies had unraveled in front of everyone they claimed to care about. As the confrontation escalated, law enforcement officers arrived, summoned by Nana earlier that day. They escorted her parents away for questioning, leaving behind a stunned and divided village. But Nana felt no satisfaction. Justice was bittersweet when it came at such a high cost. She had exposed the truth, but in doing so, she had burned every bridge connecting her to the life she once knew. That night, alone in her rented room, she stared at the photograph of Ajoa Mensah, the woman who had given her up all those years ago. Who was she? Why had she chosen to let go? And what kind of future awaited Nana now? The answers wouldn't come easily. But one thing was certain. She would never allow herself to be controlled or betrayed again. Because sometimes, the hardest battles lead to the greatest victories. Nana stared at the grainy photograph of Ajoa Mensah, the woman who had given her up all those years ago. Her features were faintly familiar, like echoes of Nana's own reflection. But beyond the image, there was little else to go on. No address, no contact information, nothing but a name scrawled on an old adoption document. Determined to find answers, Nana began her search by visiting the nearby village mentioned in the records. It was smaller than she expected, a cluster of mud brick homes surrounded by fields of maize and cassava. The air smelled of wood smoke and earth, and children played barefoot in the dirt as elders sat under trees, sharing stories. She approached one of the older women, showing her the photograph. "Do you know this woman?" she asked softly. "Her name is Ajoa Mensah." The woman studied the photo, then shook her head sadly. "Ajoa. Yes, I remember her. She left many years ago after giving birth to a child out of wedlock. Her family disowned her, and she disappeared shortly after. Some say she moved to Accra. Others claim she went abroad." Nana's heart sank. Another dead end. But she refused to give up. Over the next few days, she traveled to Accra, scouring markets, asking questions, and following every lead she could find. Each clue brought her closer to the truth, but also deeper into uncertainty. Finally, in a bustling neighborhood on the outskirts of the city, she found someone who recognized Ajoa's name, a distant cousin who remembered hearing about her struggles. "She worked odd jobs here for a while," the cousin explained. "But eventually she left for Europe. Said she wanted a fresh start." Europe. The word hit Nana like a punch to the gut. Finding Ajoa now seemed impossible. Yet something inside her refused to quit. She reached out to Elena Vasquez again, explaining her quest. To her surprise, Elena offered help. Not just financially, but through her network of contacts across Europe. Weeks turned into months as Nana pieced together fragments of Ajoa's life. Finally, she received a breakthrough. An address in Berlin, Germany. With trembling hands, she booked a flight, unsure of what awaited her. When she arrived at the small apartment in Berlin, her heart raced. A middle-aged woman answered the door, her eyes widening in shock when she saw Nana. For a moment neither spoke. Then the woman whispered, "You look just like her." "Like who?" Nana asked, though she already knew the answer. "Your mother," the woman replied softly. "I'm your aunt, Ajoa's sister." Nana's knees buckled beneath her as the woman ushered her inside. Over tea, her aunt revealed the painful truth. Ajoa had died years earlier in a car accident, leaving behind a legacy of resilience and regret. She had always hoped to reconnect with the daughter she gave up, but fate intervened too soon. As Nana absorbed the news, grief washed over her, not just for the mother she never knew, but for the life she might have had. Yet amidst the sorrow, a new determination emerged. She would honor Ajoa's memory by reclaiming her own identity, and ensuring no one else suffered the way she had. When Nana returned to Cameroon weeks later, the village was still reeling from her parents' arrest. Whispers followed her wherever she went, some filled with sympathy, others with judgment. People debated whether she had done the right thing, exposing her parents' crimes. Some even accused her of betraying her family for personal gain. One evening, as she walked past the baobab tree where she'd confronted her parents, a group of villagers blocked her path. Among them was her uncle, a man she barely recognized but who carried himself with authority. "You've shamed us," he said coldly, his voice cutting through the humid night air. "Our family's reputation is ruined because of you." "I didn't shame anyone," Nana shot back, anger rising in her chest. "They shamed themselves by stealing and lying. If anything, I saved this village from their corruption." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, dividing opinions. Her uncle stepped closer, his tone menacing. "You think you're better than us. You abandoned your family, your home. Now you come back acting like a hero." "I didn't abandon anyone," she snapped, tears welling in her eyes. "I sacrificed everything for people who didn't deserve it. And when I found out the truth, I did what was necessary. If that makes me the villain, so be it." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then, unexpectedly, an elder stepped forward, a woman whose wisdom commanded respect. "Enough," she said firmly, her voice steady. "This girl has suffered enough." She exposed the truth, not for revenge but for justice. "Let her be." Her words broke the tension, scattering the crowd. As Nana stood alone beneath the baobab tree, she realized something profound. Forgiveness wasn't just for others, it was for herself. She couldn't change the past, but she could shape her future. And she intended to do just that. The days following the confrontation at the baobab tree were tense but transformative for Nana. While some villagers continued to whisper behind her back, others began to see her actions in a new light. Her courage had exposed not only her parents' corruption but also the broader web of exploitation that had long plagued their community. Slowly, people started approaching her, not with accusations but with gratitude. One morning, as she sat under the shade of her rented room, sketching plans for a small business she hoped to start, there was a knock at the door. Outside stood Miriam, her childhood friend, holding a basket of fresh fruit. "I heard what happened," Miriam said softly, stepping inside. "You've been through so much." Nana forced a smile, though her heart still ached. "It's over now. Or at least I hope it is." Miriam hesitated before speaking again. "Not everything is over. There's something you need to know. About your parents." Nana froze, dread pooling in her stomach. "What do you mean?" "They're out," Miriam whispered. "Released on bail. And they're angry. Angrier than anyone expected." Fear gripped her chest. She had known this moment might come, but hearing it aloud made it all too real. Her parents' arrest hadn't ended their influence. If anything, it had emboldened them to fight back. That night, unable to sleep, Nana wandered to the edge of the village, where the fields stretched endlessly under the moonlight. She replayed Miriam's words in her mind, searching for clarity. What would they do? Would they try to discredit her? Or worse, would they seek revenge? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps behind her. Turning sharply, she saw a figure emerge from the shadows. It was her father. "You shouldn't be here," she said coldly, taking a step back. "Leave me alone." He ignored her warning, stepping closer until he was close enough to touch. His voice was low, almost pleading. "We didn't mean for any of this to happen, Nana. We thought we were protecting you." "Protecting me?" she spat, incredulous. "By lying to me. By using me. Don't insult me with your excuses." Her father sighed heavily, his shoulders slumping. For a moment he looked older, frail even. But then his expression hardened, and he reached into his pocket. Nana tensed, expecting the worst. Instead, he pulled out a folded piece of paper and handed it to her. "This belongs to you," he said simply. She unfolded it cautiously, her breath catching as she recognized the handwriting. It was Ajoa's. A letter written years ago, addressed to the daughter she gave up. Tears blurred Nana's vision as she read the words. My dearest child. If you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. Please know that giving you up was the hardest decision I ever made, but I did it because I wanted you to have a better life. A life free from shame and struggle. I pray you find strength in who you are, and that you never forget how deeply loved you are. The letter ended abruptly, as if Ajoa had been interrupted mid-thought. But its impact was profound. For the first time, Nana felt a connection to the mother she never knew, a woman who had sacrificed everything out of love. When she looked up, her father was gone, leaving her alone with her thoughts. The letter wasn't an apology or an excuse. It was a reminder of resilience, of survival against impossible odds. But the peace it brought was short-lived. Days later, rumors spread through the village. Her parents were planning to sell off land they claimed belonged to Nana. Land she had unknowingly inherited from Ajoa. Betrayal struck once more, but this time Nana was ready to fight back. Nana's hands trembled as she clutched the deed to the land, a document she had discovered buried in her parents' belongings after their arrest. The property, located on the outskirts of the village, was legally hers, inherited from Ajoa Mensa. It wasn't vast or particularly valuable, but it represented something far greater. Her roots, her identity, and her independence. But now, her parents were planning to sell it without her consent. She confronted them at dawn, storming into their makeshift home near the edge of the village. They looked up in surprise, guilt etched across their faces even before she spoke. How dare you, Nana hissed, slamming the deed onto the table. This land belongs to me. To Ajoa's bloodline. Not you. Her mother flinched, tears welling in her eyes. We're doing this for your own good, Nana. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, Nana interrupted, her voice rising. You've spent my entire life taking everything from me. My money, my dreams, my trust. And now you want to take the one thing I have left. It's not like that, her father snapped, his tone defensive. We need the money to pay off our debts. Do you think we can survive after what you did to us? What I did? Nana laughed bitterly, shaking her head. You brought this on yourselves. Your greed destroyed us all. Her words hung heavy in the air, silencing them momentarily. Then her mother reached for her hand, pleading softly. Please, Nana, forgive us. We're your family. We love you. Love doesn't steal, Nana shot back, pulling her hand away. And it doesn't lie. If you sell this land, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who you are. What you've done. Her threat seemed to rattle them, but there was no backing down. As she turned to leave, her father called after her, desperation creeping into his voice. You think this land is worth fighting for? Fine. But you should know, it's not just ours anymore. Nana froze, turning slowly to face him. What do you mean? He hesitated, then sighed heavily. We used it as collateral for loans. Years ago when we were desperate. If we don't repay them soon, the bank will seize it anyway. Shock rippled through her. Collateral. Her land, the only inheritance from her biological mother, had been gambled away without her knowledge. Betrayal burned hotter than ever, but beneath the anger lay a chilling realization. Her fight wasn't just against her parents. It was against a system designed to exploit the vulnerable. Determined to reclaim what was rightfully hers, Nana sought legal advice from Elena Vasquez, who connected her with a pro bono lawyer specializing in property disputes. Together, they filed a lawsuit to challenge the loan agreements, arguing that the land had been pledged illegally without proper documentation or consent. The case quickly became public, drawing attention from local media outlets. Journalists flocked to the village, eager to cover the scandal involving corruption, familial betrayal, and stolen inheritances. For weeks, Nana endured relentless scrutiny. Her every move dissected, her past laid bare for the world to see. Through it all, she remained resolute. She gave interviews, shared her story, and rallied others in the community who had suffered similar injustices. Slowly, support began to grow. Not just for her but for systemic change. But just as victory seemed within reach, another bombshell dropped. During a court hearing, evidence surfaced implicating not only her parents but also several prominent village elders in the fraudulent transactions. Among them was the very same elder who had defended Nana during the confrontation at the baobab tree. Betrayal struck again, but this time it came from someone she had trusted. As the courtroom erupted in chaos, Nana sat stunned, grappling with the magnitude of the revelation. The corruption ran deeper than she had imagined, entangling everyone, including those she thought were allies. Yet amidst the turmoil, a spark of clarity ignited within her. This wasn't just about reclaiming her land anymore. It was about exposing the truth, no matter how painful, or how many lives it shattered. Because sometimes, justice demands sacrifice. The courtroom was packed, a sea of faces watching intently as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict. Nana sat at the center of it all, her posture rigid but her hands trembling beneath the table. Weeks of legal battles had taken their toll, sleepless nights, endless arguments, and the crushing weight of betrayal, but she refused to falter now. This was her moment to reclaim not just her land, but her dignity. As the judge spoke, his words echoed through the tense silence. After reviewing the evidence presented, this court finds the loans secured against Ms. Nana Okonkwo's property invalid due to lack of proper documentation and consent. The land is hereby returned to its rightful owner. A wave of relief washed over her, followed swiftly by anger. Her parents sat slumped in their seats, defeated yet unrepentant. Nearby, the implicated elders avoided eye contact, their reputations shattered alongside the lies they had perpetuated. Justice had been served, but at what cost? Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed her, microphones thrust forward as cameras flashed. "How does it feel to win?" one asked. "What's next for you?" another pressed. Nana paused, taking a deep breath before addressing the crowd. "This isn't just my victory," she said firmly, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "It's a reminder that no one, not even family, is above accountability. For years, I trusted blindly, believing they acted out of love. Instead, they saw me as nothing more than a source of profit." Her words silenced the reporters momentarily, their pens hovering mid-air. She continued, her tone softening but carrying undeniable strength. "To anyone leaving home in search of a better life, remember that sacrifice should never mean exploitation. Trust must be earned, not assumed. And if your loved ones betray you, don't let shame keep you silent. Speak up for yourself and for others who may be suffering in silence." With that, she turned away, ignoring the barrage of follow-up questions. As she walked through the bustling streets of the village, she felt lighter, not because the pain had disappeared, but because she had finally confronted it head-on. That evening, Nana stood alone at the edge of her reclaimed land, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The soil beneath her feet felt solid, grounding her in a way she hadn't experienced in years. This patch of earth wasn't just property. It was proof that she could survive anything, that she could rebuild no matter how much was taken from her. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a message from Elena Vasquez. "You've inspired so many. Keep going." Tears welled in her eyes as she stared at the screen. Inspired. She hadn't set out to inspire anyone. All she'd wanted was justice. Yet perhaps, in fighting for herself, she had given others permission to do the same. As night fell, she knelt on the ground, pressing her palms into the cool soil. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to grieve, not just for Ajoa, not just for the dreams stolen from her, but for the innocence she had lost along the way. Grief mingled with gratitude, sorrow with hope. And then, amidst the quiet stillness, she made a promise, to herself and to anyone who might hear her story. "Never again will I let someone else define my worth. Never again will I sacrifice my soul for people who see me as expendable. Love shouldn't demand everything and give nothing in return. Trust isn't blind, it's earned. And sometimes the hardest battles lead to the greatest victories, not over others but over ourselves." With that vow echoing in her heart, Nana rose to her feet, ready to begin anew. The scars would always remain, but they were no longer chains. They were reminders of how far she had come. For those who leave home in pursuit of opportunity, remember, your sacrifices should uplift you, not enslave you. Families are human, and humans can fail. Blind trust, especially when fueled by guilt or obligation, often leads to exploitation. Speak up when something feels wrong. Protect yourself, even if it means challenging those closest to you. True love doesn't demand everything, it gives back equally. Because sometimes, the deepest wounds teach us the most valuable lessons.